And he's doing it
That's
now.
it. That's
we
it.
said that.
That's what drew me to Scotty. I mean, when
Yeah.
I met him, that he's
Thank
a
you.
stand-up brother.
Thank you.
And he would tell it like it is, not to try to, be negative or hurt anybody, but to just stand up and tell the truth.
Yes.
And to be a man about it,
Yes.
And I think we need a whole lot more of that. We have some, but we need a whole lot more, especially in this city. Scotty, share with us that story you talking
Yeah.
about. Now we're talking 20 years after
After.
when you
This is-
had an opportunity to arrest, or I shouldn't call it opportunity, but an occasion to arrest
Right.
someone.
I mean, even as Sergeant Matthews talked about, the dividing line is steel. If you remember in 2001, Jim, the dividing line is Central Parkway.
Yeah, Central
The
Parkway.
policing,
That's where they
as
put
much
it.
as
That's
we
right.
have advanced,
Yeah.
policing is different south of Central Parkway versus north of Central Parkway.
And he just talked about
And he
that.
talked about that. Let's be honest about something. When
Yeah.
in 2001, when we had the uprising, where was the line drawn?
Central Parkway.
The line was drawn at Central Parkway,
That's right.
so there was no disturbance in the downtown
That's right.
business
That's
center.
right.
Well, the story goes is this was late 80s. Probably 88 or 89. I pulled this older white gentleman over, and he had run 2 red lights.
Wow.
Pull him over on Central Parkway, and driver's license and all those different type of things. And as he's handing me the license, he says to me, "You can't issue me a ticket. You can't write me a ticket.
Oh, he
You
did.
can't do it. And I'm not gonna sign the ticket, and you can't arrest me."
Wow.
So of course I proceeded back to my car. We had called it in, made sure the man wasn't wanted and whatever else.
Yeah.
So by state law, when we issue a citation, we have to ask for the citizen's signature. It's not
Right.
an admission of guilt.
Right.
It's just stating you received a copy
Right.
of the citation.
Right.
Well, our procedure talks about if they refuse to sign the ticket, you have to call a supervisor in.
Uh-huh.
The supervisor shows up and he said he won't, this gentleman will not sign the ticket. He told the supervisor, that black officer,
Wow.
and this is the late
He said
80s,
black.
that black officer cannot issue me a ticket. And I know he can't arrest me. So,
Was he saying this from a legal perspective or
no,
just?
he was saying it from the fact of probably
'Cause
this
you were
gentleman-
black.
yeah, I was a black police officer.
Wow.
And he went on and on and on. Well, the sergeant, who happened to be a white man, said, "Well, maybe we need to call for another car." I said, "I'll tell you what. You call for another car. I dare you to call for another car. I'm a Cincinnati police officer.
That's right.
I saw him violate the law.
Right.
If he doesn't believe he violated the law, then he needs to come to court.
Right.
That's the opportunity he'll have. But if you call for another car, I guarantee you, Channel 5, 9, 12, and 19 are going to know exactly what
Wow.
you did." He said, "If you threatened me," I said, I promise you that. I said, because there's no reason in the world. This man needs to understand he's not living in 1940 anymore.
That's right.
This man needs to understand
right.
he violated the law.
Yeah.
I've been given the honor
Yeah.
to serve the citizens
Yeah.
of Cincinnati, carry a gun and a badge,
Right.
and you mean you're going to degrade me by calling a white officer to issue this man a ticket?
Man,
So
20
that
years
was
ago.
going on. That was going on even in small pockets in the late 80s
Yeah.
because it happened to me.
Wow.
So those type of stories are real, and most citizens wouldn't believe it. But that happened to me in the late 80s. So I can't imagine what Sergeant
What was going
Matthews
on
and
there.
them
Yeah.
went through
Man.
when it came to coming into contact with white citizens.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
Let me say that we are here at the home of Sergeant Andy Matthews, retired police officer, Cincinnati police officer, talking to him. This is eavesdropping on the elders, of course, talking to Sergeant Matthews and Specialist Scotty Johnson about some of the trials and victories of being a police officer in the city of Cincinnati. And we're real proud and honored to have Brother Matthews here share his stories with us and things that he has done. As you can see, he's done a lot. I mean, every time they had an issue, they want to send you, right? You're like, who was that, Elijah? Send me. What other, let me ask you something though. Now, people think about police officers and violence. Did you ever get into any, you said you got stabbed, but I mean, when you were arresting 4 people, but did you ever have occasion to fire at anybody or to shoot anybody?
I had an opportunity to do so because I locked up a lot of felons. I sent a lot of people to the penitentiary.
Uh-huh.
But I never in the 29 years fired my
29.
gun at anybody.
You never fired a gun at
I
anyone?
never fired my gun at anyone.
How many people would you just guess that you were arrested in
Oh,
2019?
I can't.
Thousands?
I can't even say how many.
Wow.
If I was an investigator of the district and crimes were committed, burglary or robbery, rape, murder, I was assigned to work on that case, to solve that particular case. And did so. If a person committed a felony, he had to go to the penitentiary. And I can't remember now how many people might have went to the penitentiary. But I did my job.
Right.
I did my job so well in the traffic bureau that the white counterparts started to accept me as a part of the organization. One day on Vine Street, I stopped for a red light. The light turned green. A car rolled up. He had the red light. He looked at me and he turned the corner on the red light. At that time, you couldn't turn on
Couldn't
the
turn
red
over,
light.
yeah.
I stopped, put my hand, stop. And they kept right on going. I turned around and caught them, pulled them over, got out of the car. It was something similar to what Scotty Johnson said. They were not going to let a black man tell them what to do. I was in the process of doing, they were about, I felt, to attack me. But along came some of my white counterparts,
All right.
and the motorcycle officers. They drove up and said, "What's the matter, Handy?" I said, "He don't want to accept his ticket." So they dressed him down.
Oh, yeah.
They said, "Now, Handy, you write the ticket and see," and they accepted it. But now I can see things were changing.
Yeah.
They didn't just say, "Step aside, we'll write the ticket." Handy.
Right.
No, say, "Handy, write the ticket," and he better accept it.
Exactly.
But things were changing then, and it was not known throughout the police department. But I could see things were changing. They just needed a little push,
Yeah.
a little push
Yeah.
to help it get where it is now. It's not perfect now.
Right.
We still need some changes to be made, but it's up to those people coming along after
That's right.
me
That's right. That's
to
right.
continue,
That's right.
to continue to make sure things are done correctly.
Yeah.
So we can wind up with a person named Wright, who's the fire chief of the fire
That's right.
department,
That's
can
That's right.
if necessary. Almost did it. Twitty.
Yeah,
that's right.
Almost
That's right.
became the police chief.
Police chief.
Right.
But Stryker outpointed him. I had lunch with the chief Stryker about 3 months ago. He and I
Wow.
sat down and had lunch together. His father and I worked together.
Oh, yeah?
Police officer, yes.
Yeah.
We were on the vice squad together. He remembers that I was just before going into the vice squad, I was a juvenile officer. And I would go to all schools because kids that did things. Therefore, I would show up. He went to Elder, but I had to show up at Elder every once in a while because they had boys or girls that did things wrong. And as a juvenile officer, I had to deal with it. But this man named Stryker, who is the police chief now, remembers me as a police officer. And I'm sure his father spoke of me when he went home.
Yeah.
And now he is the chief of police, and I see him doing things which is good, I say, for the community, because he's taking steps to show that the police department has changed,
Yeah.
and it is serving the entire populace
That's right.
of Cincinnati,
Yeah.
not just one segment.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I told him that, and hopefully he'll continue on pushing, because they got a lot of people want him out of there
Yeah.
because of the way he acted.
Well, whenever you stand up and try to do what's right, you're always going to have folks that come at you. You know,
Absolutely.
and I think that we can just sit here, we have sat here in the last few minutes, just talked about the history really of the police department from the 40s and up to now, and we see the changes that have taken place. And Scotty, of course, you've seen a lot of changes in the last 10, 15 years
Absolutely.
here in Cincinnati,
Absolutely.
and you take a little flack from you
Absolutely.
trying to
Yeah.
change status quo.
Yeah.
And like Brother Handy said, to have the police department serve everybody.
That's
the
right.
same way, all
That's
the time,
right.
be consistent, and everything for everybody. And a lot of people don't want, don't want to
I
see
would
that
have
happen.
to say the proudest accomplishment this so far in 24 years, I'm in my 24th year now, is the collaborative agreement. Being a part of that collaborative agreement, being a part of when I was being Sentinel president, and
That's right. Yeah, you
them
were
coming
president
and saying at that point in time, What can we do? You were heavily involved in it, along with Ken Lawson and a whole lot of other people. Damon Lynch, Iris Rowley, a whole bunch of people saying, what can we do? And the Sentinels were intricate, because I was going to make sure that we were going to play a role in providing the information necessary to change the policies and procedures. So as Sergeant Matthews talked about, where policing is fair, south of Central Parkway, just like it is north of Central Parkway. And that is the one thing, I would have to say, that is the most proud thing that I was involved in my 24 years. Because you saw the transition of how police respond. Not perfect, as Sergeant Matthews pointed out.
It's still evolving.
It's still evolving, exactly. But being a part of that, that was huge here in the city of Cincinnati.
Here in Scotty,
29 years you did. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what would you characterize as your proudest moment in the 29 years you were a police officer? I mean, you've had so many experiences.
The fact that I was able to recruit, I was able to show the entire city that we did have qualified blacks within the community. My proudest moments was seeing Cecil Thomas, Michael Curtin, and we go on down to Lieutenant Williams. Just name
Clarence Williams.
He was one of my recruits.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I had to beg him too.
And now he's chief of police down in Florida.
I had to go to their house, get in the kitchen with the mama, and say, please tell him, sign him, because he go, oh no, I ain't gonna be called no woman. But they did. They did, and they exceeded some of my expectations. Made me so proud that we did have some men in Cincinnati that could be police officers. And we look at Scotty Johnson. I just take my hat off.
Future maybe police chief, maybe one day. Sheriff or something. Wow, this is just, it's so, what can I say, not amazing, but just it's interesting, it's amazing, it's honorable to be here talking about this kind of thing with Handy Matthews, a legend in our community.
A legend, Jim, truly a legend.
I remember seeing Handy walk the beat. I remember back when I was young. I didn't know who he was, but I remember hearing all the stories about who he was, and you didn't cross Handy Matthews.
No,
but here, he's just said he never fired his weapon at anybody.
And that's a testimony in itself, because as Sergeant Matthews talked about, the opportunity, now here it is, and I've talked about this, the opportunity to fire, you would be justified by the court.
Especially if somebody stabbed you.
But somebody stabs you. Sergeant Matthews can tell you, fleeing felons, they used to be able to shoot just because you were a felon.
Just because you ran.
There you go, you ran away. But the moral obligation to the community, the moral obligation to your fellow man, supersedes state law to me. Yes, there are definitely situations where I could have shot and killed another man easily and been justified in doing it. But the bigger picture to me was did I survive it? Yes. Was anybody else hurt? No. Did we finally eventually catch up with the guy? Absolutely, because I knew who he was. So to me, as when you are giving the assignment and the opportunity and the blessing to serve the citizens of Cincinnati as a police officer, it goes beyond state law. It goes beyond what your fellow officers are going to think of you. It's really a calling, I believe. It's a divine calling to keep the citizens of Cincinnati safe. And if you can do that, as Sergeant Matthews demonstrated in a 29-year career, and thank God in the next couple I'm going to be getting out, but in 24 years never having to fire my weapon. There's a call and a duty, and it goes beyond what state law and procedure tells you can do.
And I think when I heard Sergeant Matthews talking early on about him walking the beat, he said, my job was to keep the people safe.
Go.
It wasn't to hurt anyone, it wasn't to intimidate anyone, it was to keep people safe. And I think it's a matter of priorities.
Yes, it
is. In the mind of a police officer. And those days, your top priority was to keep the community safe. Nobody breaking. And I always talk about having a real community where there are three things: economic control, political independence, and a code of conduct.
There you
To
go.
make a community.
That's right.
And what he just identified was that code of conduct. Now, you didn't do, oh no,
Right.
police officer Matthews, Handy Matthews, you better not do that. You
Right.
don't want him to know, that kind of thing. You don't want Miss
Right.
Mary to know you did. We had those codes of conduct where we lived on our streets in the West End and everything. I mean, I'm not saying there was no crime,
Right.
but there was a different mentality about it back
Well,
then.
you know what, Jim? I think it speaks to the pride
Yeah.
in the black community then.
Mm-hmm.
The Sergeant Matthews talking about being proud to go and find black men that were
That's right,
qualified
yeah.
and bringing them to the police department and look what they aspired to
Right,
be.
right.
But there was a pride, even as a young person, there was pride in the community
Yeah.
where there were certain things you weren't going to do, even to embarrass the community.
That's right. Yeah.
Really think about it.
Yeah.
You didn't do stuff, even when we were away from our parents in high school. I went to Woodward High School, the new Woodward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sergeant Matthews went to,
Yeah.
but even in high school, being a basketball player, you didn't do things to embarrass the team.
That's right.
Community.
Yeah.
You didn't do things to embarrass your parents.
Your family.
Community.
That's right. Yeah.
So there
That's
was
right.
a pride in the black community
Yeah.
at that point where it appears it's slipping away, and it has slipped away, but I still think we can recapture that
Yeah.
when you hear the elders talk about
Right.
where they came from and the doors they kicked open
That's
so
right.
we can walk
That's
through.
right. That's exactly right. I mean, it's so important. And this whole notion of community and taking pride in your community and not doing certain things because, that's just the way it is. You don't want to
Exactly.
embarrass your family. And I know you had that message from Bob and Shirley, Big Bob and Shirley. I know you had that.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
But it's so interesting that you carried that with you as a police officer.
See, later on in life, I didn't know at the time. His parents were my personal friends.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you didn't
We
know.
were children together.
Yeah,
I didn't
you were
know, I
children
didn't
together.
realize.
Hey, we have to talk a little bit about that. We got about 10 minutes. Tell me some stories about Big Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His mother and his father were my personal friends. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Man, this is. I mean, it's so interesting to see
Throughout
all
my
these
career,
connections.
we have associated together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
they're
was
gonna
really
love
proud.
this video.
I was so proud because, see, we didn't have an opportunity to get good jobs. And his daddy and his mom, they lived the type of life where he was accepted. She was too, intelligent, pretty. I said that later on when I found out, I just hugged him. I just hugged him because I didn't realize Scotty Johnson was their son.
Wow.
Yeah.
This has just been a wonderful, wonderful time.
It has.
We have probably about 6 or 7 minutes, and I want to kind of capture it if I can. And you guys have to help me capture the essence of this show, the value of this show, because this is going to be seen on the internet. It's going to be seen on, of course, on cable TV, and I'll have copies. I think I'll even send old Clarence Williams a copy. I haven't talked to him in a while. I'll send him a copy too.
Yeah.
And his mother still lives
Absolutely.
here, Mrs. Williams. So, I just want to capture the essence of what this means. We have a younger police officer here who has followed, literally, followed in your footsteps.
That's right.
And you have these vivid memories of what took place back in the 50s and 60s when you were a police officer. And how do we capture this, Scotty? What's the message that we need to get from this and send out to our younger people?
The message I captured from this is, first of all, the honor and the opportunity to know